so, this exciting future where there's millions of tokens and, all of us here are going to be micro investors, and we're all discussing, hey, what projects have you bought into this week, and why are certain people underpriced, overpriced, and it basically changes the concept idea of money. So, one thing I wanted to talk about today was the idea of, us in the master's program and all the, participants and members of the unit community here to create agencies. The idea that, all of us are friends who are working on projects or companies, and they need lots of help. A lot of people have no clue what a token is, what it means, what it can do for them. And, what we can do is help them, create a token, tell them how to run a good token, and eventually become like a micro fund. So imagine all of us in different parts of the world, from Lisbon to Mallorca to Madrid to Sweden to Berlin to Poole, and we've got good understanding of all the how things operate in that local jurisdictional place, like for instance in India, or Barcelona, so many different places. So if all of us started, create our personal token, experimented with that, tried to learn about what works and what doesn't work with that, and then supported the people around us in making tokens, then this allows us to help and support our friends, our family, our community, and that's what's going to really accelerate the shift. It's not going to be big companies or projects which do really big tokens. It's going to be lots of individuals like us creating small tokens, and if everyone was to create these micro tokens, then that's what's going to really lead to this shift. And it's similar at the moment, I think, crypto, to how the early internet was, or the early mobile apps were. So when the iPhone came out, there were a bunch of neat nerds and geeks who were lining outside the Apple store, and people were like, why would you pay $1,000 for a phone? My Nokia cost $15 or $25. Who would pay, I could get 40 Nokias for that. And all you could do on an iPhone anyway was make phone calls and send text. So why would you waste so much money or, be part of this? And it's evolved so much. So, now someone who buys a $20 smartphone, in a rural suburb is able to get a device much better than the first iPhone. So, I really like to think when you're building something, take the approach of looking at what, 5, 8, 10 years look like, and build for that, build for where the puck is going. So I really recommend everyone here to see how they can build a token agency. So, think about all the businesses that you interact with on a day-to-day basis, and think how can a token fit in nicely with this? And concepts like the bank or the Treasury that unit provides hopes to make it much more accessible to for someone buying into a token. They're able to understand exactly how well something's doing operationally. If let's say your friend is a musician, by creating a token, you can by them creating a token and you supporting them, it isn't the case, traditionally when you set up a company, you don't really have oversight, or you don't really see how well something is doing on an operating basis, right? The cool thing about token and the cool thing about the blockchain is all of that happens in real time. So you can basically see, you don't have to call that project or company up and say, hey, how's it going? Remember that $1,000 I gave you to get started? Now you're doing really well. Could you return that? You can actually see in real time. So really excited for that. I can also walk through some of the features on the unit network, so you can kind of get an idea what that looks like in the coming future. So let me go into unit. So can everyone see my screen here? Can everyone see it? Yeah. So basically, if you create a token, all you need to do is hit create. You give it a name, an image, a supply, and symbol. And what this does, it basically allows you to create a token. It's an easy way for the value you create not just to be held by the person investing in it, or like the founders and investors, but also the customers, the employees can get a piece of the pie. So that lets you create a token. And what does it mean when you create a token? You get a bunch of these features. You can, set up different sale rounds to raise some capital for it. You can, once you raise capital, all that funds goes into the bank, and the bank is basically where operationally you can see, okay, this project, how much money does it have to pay its staff to, pay its rent, to grow, to survive. If you bought into, let's say, a musician or an artist, this is what they would use to buy new equipment. This is what they would use to travel. Go to a restaurant, that's what they'll pay their rent, their staff, their ingredients. And then the really cool innovation with Unit is the Treasury. So here in Unit, we've got about $7.8 million in the Treasury. What that means is, 143 Bitcoin, 650 Ethereum, 9,000 DOT tokens, 38,000 Matic. And this means that, when Unit generates exchange fees or when Unit becomes successful, this is what will grow. And, same way when you're born to a musician or to an artist or to a bakery or a restaurant, if the Treasury is zero, there's nothing underlying it. There's in the worst case scenario, it could be worthless. But if it builds up its Treasury, it's a way of building up the underlying fundamentals or the backing behind the token. So we're in a world now where there's about 12,000 tokens, and these 12,000 tokens aren't backed by anything apart from the speculative value. Meaning that if a bunch of people bought a coin or a token, it will just go up in value. If people lose interest, it's just going to drop, and it's not having it's not tied to the products or services offered. So as an example, let's say Daniela or Julie or Ken or Marie or Robert start a token. We bought their token. They could tell a bunch of their friends to buy that token, and it becomes worth more. And they're not motivated or incentivized to build real products or services. They're more incentivized to just get more people buying it, and it becomes worth more. What we're going to see in the next evolution of the token economy is where tokens are having, or coins are having to build something of value and service to society. So if it's your local restaurant, it's providing food and drinks and service. If it's an agency, it's providing maybe design services or development services. If it's a musician, it could be merchandise, it could be performances. And when this project generates these products and services, it produces maybe dollars, francs, euros, and with this value provided, it gets converted to things like Bitcoin, Ethereum, DOT, Unit, and that goes into the Treasury to build it up. So, I'm really excited for everyone here to create a token, and I love to buy into it and help other people create tokens, creating their own micro stock exchange or micro fund. And why this is so exciting is because we're going to move to a society which is much more collaborative and cooperative. So instead of, as mentioned, the founders and investors of the world maintaining and holding all of the value, it's going to be the customers and employees. The vast majority of society is able to get a piece of the pie. So I think this is a really nice trend that's emerging, and if we could work together on us as the Unit Masters community and the Unit community, organizing local meetups and gatherings and educating people and running lots of case studies and experiments. We're also working on producing a TV show, kind of similar to The Apprentice, where instead of people trying to run a business or the idea there is to showcase how token-based projects and businesses operate. So does anyone have any questions so far, or like to share something that they're working on, or any points or feedback on things offered? Also, one thing that I'm excited to talk about on one of our subsequent master's programs is I gave a talk in Denver, and it was called Intro to Substrate. So I can walk you through what that looks like. So Intro to Substrate, and Substrate is basically the language you use to build blockchains. So it's a framework, and why this is interesting is we're going to be launching something alongside the master's program called Substrate Academy, where people learn how to build blockchains. So now, there's very few people in the world who build Bitcoin or build Ethereum or build Polkadot or Solana or Cardano or things like this. And Substrate is basically this thing created by the Web3 Foundation, which teaches you how to build blockchain. So I'll try and run through as much as possible. This is the talk that I gave in Denver. What is Unit trying to do? It's trying to solve the wealth inequity, as mentioned, bridge the wealth gap between the people who start things and invest in things and everyone else, the customers and employees. It's the main interesting aspects of Unit, like the cool innovations that we feel nobody else in the crypto sphere is doing, that's going to change the world. The Treasury and the vault. So Treasury was what was mentioned, building up this floor price, this fundamental value for tokens. And the vaults are ways of bridging different chains. So now, if you have some Bitcoin and I did some work for you and you need to pay me and I only want Ethereum, you need to convert that Bitcoin to Ethereum. And it's very, difficult. It's like you need to go through an exchange. So things like the vaults and bridges help solve that. We'll cover this maybe in one of the subsequent sessions. So in terms of my background, so I'm half Singaporean and British and Irish, like mixed. Got into crypto in 2010. So I built the app for WikiLeaks, and the government froze our bank accounts, which seemed really unfortunate at the time, but worked out extremely well. So it was, Bitcoin was at 9 cents, 11 Bitcoins for $1. And it's grown a lot since then, kind of similar to what's happening in Canada this week, where, the government should really be following processes. They shouldn't just be freezing accounts because, people are protesting. So even though protesting is illegal, they shouldn't just do something else which is illegal, which is freezing people's accounts. They should, follow the rules the same way expect to follow the rules. Starts a social network, 3 million users, very passionate about education and seeing how we can, empower people. I worked at, Wellington Partners, one of the top funds in Europe, and, been trying to see how we can build this token economy of unit. So blockchains, what are blockchains? So the first blockchain was created in 2008. That was Bitcoin. And, Bitcoin is really cool because it let you do two things really well. It lets you send money from person A to person B without anyone in the middle. So kind of like if you want to send money, most people, if they want to send money in the world now, they need to use a bank, or they need to use something like PayPal or something like Venmo. Bitcoin was super cool because I could send you, or you could send me, or we could send each other Bitcoins and we didn't have to ask anyone. And the other really cool thing was we could hold on to it. We could hold our own value. You don't have to, keep gold in a safe, or you don't have to leave money in a bank. It allowed you to, it was a good store of value. It allowed you to store value. And it was a good peer-to-peer medium of exchange. So it allowed you to pay things without a centralized party. Then this 18-year-old, 19-year-old Vitalik Buterin, he said, hey, let's build more things on Bitcoin. Let's build applications. So decentralized payments are cool, but let's build decentralized news. Let's build a decentralized voting system. There's more decentralized things we can build. And he tried to build on Bitcoin, but they turned him down. They kind of rejected him. They said, you're crazy. Let's just focus on what we're doing. So he raised about $28 million in 2014 to launch Ethereum. And the idea of Ethereum was it was a smart contract blockchain. You could basically build these things called decentralized apps. So these apps, what these decentralized apps did, it allowed you to program, different applications. If someone wanted to build collectibles on a blockchain like NFTs, or someone wanted to do decentralized news, or like this tool that we're using, this community Zoom, you could build a decentralized Zoom. Everyone tried to build on this one single blockchain. Like imagine one car, everyone was trying to, build this general purpose blockchain, this car. They tried to make it do everything. They wanted it to ride on water. They wanted to go underwater. They wanted to go on racetracks. But the problem with that is, if you're trying to build one blockchain which tries to do everything, it's not going to do any of them particularly well. So, Ethereum is very expensive. It's very slow. It's everyone trying to fit their use case for this one blockchain. And the really cool thing, the person who started Ethereum with Vitalik was this guy, Gavin Wood. And he said, okay, if I had to do this again, how would I do it? And he basically built this thing called Polkadot. And Polkadot basically lets you build your own Ethereum or build your own Bitcoin. So Substrate is the language, and Polkadot is the blockchain of blockchains. So we're going to cover that very shortly. So this is slightly more technical, but I think good to cover. So what is a blockchain? So a blockchain basically comprises of, several of these things. The first one is a database. So a database is like a way of storing data. So if you use, let's say, email, or you use Facebook, or you use Instagram, or you use, Google News or Google, it's all stored in a database. It's like different piece of information. It's kind of like if you're familiar with Excel or a spreadsheet, it's storing all this data of the users, of the messages, of the pictures, so on the database. So a blockchain also has a database. It's keeping track of like Bitcoins, keeping track of how many Bitcoins I hold, Bitcoins you hold, us sending to one another. A peer-to-peer network, so peer-to-peer way of distributing this data. With a blockchain, it's held in blocks. So with databases, it's held in one big table. With a blockchain, it's held in these things called blocks. You can think of blocks as boxes. So every time you send someone Bitcoin, or you do something on Ethereum, you're putting it into a block. So it's kind of like, imagine you're moving house and you're putting all of that into a block. You close the block, and then that data is kept. So the blockchain is a collection of data of all of these different blocks. So when you build a blockchain, you're doing all of these 6 different things. Also, all of this stuff we covered today might be super new. I would recommend, not being overwhelmed by it. Just assume that, the more you learn about these words, the more you will get exposed to it, and over time, it just becomes much clearer. So learning how to build blockchains or do stuff in the crypto space, it's kind of like walking into a cave when you've been outside and you can't see anything. But, if you spend a bit longer there, you'll adjust to the darkness and you'll be like, cool, I can start seeing things. Okay, so state transitions, transaction handling. So these are basically things that you can configure, like how many transactions a second, when you make a transfer, what happens, how much does it charge, forking. So forking is when you need to upgrade the network. Usually there's this thing called a hard fork. So when you create a blockchain, you decide how to upgrade the network. We're going to cover that very, very shortly. So smart contracts, what are smart contracts? So smart contracts are basically applications you write on the blockchain. So typically when you build an app, you build a website or an app, you need to put this code, you write like lots of code, you put on a server, and that server, you need to take care of it, or you can put it on Amazon where you pay Amazon to take care of it. When you write a smart contract, you put it on the blockchain, you no longer take care of it. It's up there. It's kind of like, it's out there, it's decentralized. You maybe created it, but you're no longer responsible for it. You're no longer administer it. It's kind of like, imagine you had an idea or you release the song. Once you release the song and other people heard that song or they have it on their phone, it's no longer up to you to take it down. It's decentralized. So that's one thing nice about it. Serverless. So if you think about Bitcoin, if you created Bitcoin, everyone's using it. You can't just stop it, change it, shut it down. It's kind of out there. So that's one big problem. Something that's like social media, like Facebook, or if you see a Spotify, Joe Rogan being cancelled. If it was on a blockchain, it's not possible to stop someone from sharing their views, like freedom of speech. So it does have pros and cons. The issue is it's slow, expensive, and limited resources. So that's how early we are in this Web 3.0 sort of shift and evolution of the internet. So what is Parity Technologies? What's Web3 Foundation? So these are 2 organizations that help to build Substrate or help to build Polkadot. And we think that's really the evolution of where the blockchain is headed, where we're built on Polkadot. And a little bit about Parity. So Parity was started by Gavin Wood and Jutta Steiner, and Jutta was the head of security for the Ethereum Foundation. Gavin was the CTO of the Ethereum Foundation, and they basically left Ethereum in 2015, and they built this company that helped people build a blockchain. So if you were, you had an idea or you had some money and you wanted to put blockchain into it, they would basically help you build a blockchain for a particular use. And they launched this thing called the Web3 Foundation, and the Web3 Foundation, as you can see here, is responsible for Polkadot and Kusama. The Web3 Foundation is based in Switzerland, and Parity is based in Berlin. And these are 2 major groups and organizations that help to move forward and grow Polkadot and its ecosystem. Okay, so Polkadot, Substrate, and Kusama. So what are these things? So Substrate, is mentioned, is the language that lets you build a blockchain. So if you have an idea, I want to build a blockchain for news, or I want to build a decentralized Google, you would use Substrate. And we're going to be building a 6-week course over the next month and a half, 2 months, and probably start second quarter of 2022 on how to build with Substrate. And you basically have a bunch of tools. So what is Substrate? Substrate came about from Gavin Wood and his team building Polkadot. He felt that Polkadot was what Ethereum could have been, and he thought, okay, let's use a bunch of the tools that we've used to build Polkadot so that other people can build their own blockchain. So what is it? So by definition, it's an open source, modular, and extendable framework for building blockchain. So open source meaning, it's not the opposite of open source, proprietary. So everyone can see the code, it's completely open, you can copy it, you can change it. It's modular. So it's, instead of it being, super messy and disorganized, it's in different modules. So if you wanted, let's say, a governance module, you can use that. If you wanted a token for your blockchain, you can use that. If you wanted image storing, you can use that. So it's all in different blocks and modules that you can put in, and it's extendable. So if you want to build more on top of it, you can do that. For instance, the unit network, that is a blockchain which is built using Substrate, and we plan to be connecting up to Polkadot in the coming few months. So these are the core components of it. So you've got a database layer, you've got a network layer, you have transaction queues, library of runtime. So these are like quite technical, but these are the different pieces of it. So it's kind of like, you know, if you use email, you've got maybe an inbox, you've got an outbox, you've got, you know, drafts. These are like different parts of an email. So here, when you build a blockchain, you've got these different aspects. Here, slightly more technical, you have different pellets. So pellets are things that you can use to build your blockchain. So I'm just going to skip through it. So what is Substrate written in? It's written in this language called Rust and WASM, and that basically allows you to, these are basically the languages to build a blockchain. And when you write in Rust and it's organized in this Substrate framework, then it creates this thing called WASM, which is called the WebAssembly machine code. Maybe final point, I won't run through this entire presentation, but this is one simple example. So, you know, in 2010, there was a problem with Bitcoin where someone was able to effectively create new Bitcoin. And someone was saying on this forum Bitcoin talk, we need a fix ASAP. And traditionally with blockchains, it's really difficult. You have to do this thing called a hard fork. And you can see here in the hard fork, you've got old logic, old logic, old logic. And all of the nodes, all of these servers keeping the network running need to fork the network. They need to move all to this new logic. And one of the features that Substrate provides is this thing called Forkless Upgrades. So if you want to upgrade your blockchain, you can just add this new code and it basically allows it to move quicker and faster. So this is really quite exciting and groundbreaking because it means that blockchains will be able to be built and upgraded much quicker and faster and more fluid. It isn't such a stressful thing to improve or upgrade the functionality of it. So I'm just going to talk about one more thing. So Polkadot.js, this is, if you're familiar with MetaMask, this is the Polkadot equivalent, which allows you to hold different tokens on the Polkadot network. Here you can see a number of projects, Parallel Finance or Moonbeam, which are built using Substrate on the Polkadot network. All really interesting projects. What else? So here, types of blockchain. So the first one is a development chain. So when you build a blockchain on your computer, that's called development chain. You're building it you're developing it. Then there's local testnet. So when you build locally, you know, and you've got maybe two blockchains talking to one another, that's like a local test version of a blockchain. And then a properly decentralized blockchain is where you've got many different blockchains interacting and talking to one another. It's kind of like, imagine a few of us here use Gmail or Hotmail or MSN or Yahoo, and we're like, oh, I can't email you because I don't have a Yahoo. You know, it would be kind of ridiculous, right? You know, you needed an email address specifically for each email that you are talking to. That's kind of like how blockchains work at the moment. It's like, hey, you want some, you know, Bitcoin? I only hold Ethereum. I can't directly send you the Bitcoin, you know, without going through an exchange. But you know, very soon you're going to be able to easily. You know, it's just not. It's going to be easy. Kind of like imagine if you only have euros and you buy something from the buy something in a country which doesn't accept euros. You know, you're going to swipe your card, and behind the scenes it does all of the conversions. So that's going to happen with tokens. It's just going to be super seamless and easy for people to buy, sell, trade tokens. Cool. Got some questions here. Michael, are there any drawbacks for upgrading a blockchain? For example, can the max limit of Bitcoin be changed if it was built on Substrate? That's a great and valid question. So, like Bitcoin has a limit of 21 million Bitcoins that can possibly be issued or minted. If someone wanted to change this number 21 million, they would need to get all of the computers and nodes to make this change. How it works with a Substrate blockchain or with a Polkadot blockchain is someone very similar to Bitcoin. Someone would need to make a proposal, and all of the nodes would have to vote on it, or the token holders can vote on it. And if they all agree that this is how it should be done, then that's how it gets integrated into the blockchain. Can we watch your whole presentation somewhere? Has it been recorded? Yes, most definitely. And would highly recommend everyone to join the Substrate Academy. Feel free to message Anchor or myself about how to be a part of it. It's meant for beginners, and really the goal of the end of the 6th week of the Substrate Academy is everyone might not be an expert in building blockchains, but they understand enough that, you know, they, like when people talked about how like super technical stuff about blockchains, they'll be like, okay, cool, I know all the different parts, and I could take some of these ideas and fix and improve it. Kind of like, imagine at the moment there's only like 5 or 10 websites in the world, and in the future there's going to be, like there is millions of websites. So by building with Substrate, you can build your own, what used to be websites on the internet, build your own blockchains for the token economy in the world. And I guess where we fit in with Unit is we want to make it really easy to create tokens. So if anyone has an idea or a project, easily be able to mint and issue tokens and allow people to have a piece of their future success is really, really exciting. Question here from Daniela, good question. Do you have a tip on how to change from the classic workspace smoothly to the blockchain space without kind of jeopardizing existence? Good question. So the blockchain world at the moment, the crypto world, is super early. So it's kind of like, imagine this was a party, nobody's arrived yet. You're standing there and you're like, okay, there's so few people, and you tell people about the party and they're like, wow, what a weirdo. Why would you go to that party? It's like, some people think it's delusional that, everyone will be part of this, Web3 token world in the future. Best way to think about it is it's a marathon. So, don't think in, the next 6, 12 months, think the next like 6 to 12 years. Now we're just at the beginning, all of us here, it might feel, wow, like there's so many people who know so much more. I'm super late, but, quite frankly, it's barely started. Like I used to think in 2014, wow, Bitcoin's already over $1,000, and then it dropped down to $100. And I'm like, okay, is it ever going to come back? Someone told me, Bitcoin will someday go to $10,000, and I'll be like 100 times. That's ridiculous. And now people are upset when it's dropping to $30,000, $40,000. So, I'm of the belief that Bitcoin, Ethereum, Polkadot, all of these, big chains will go, Bitcoin will go to $1 million and $50 million. But how we're going to get there is by all of us creating our individual tokens, building value for society. And then, this is how our movement can really grow and thrive. Because at the moment, there's still lots of speculation and a lot of hype and not enough real problems being solved. So it's kind of like, imagine you have this amazing idea like called the internet, but then nobody's actually doing anything on it. Nobody's buying anything from it. Nobody's messaging on it. If you send someone an email, they're not going to read it or get back to you. Yeah, that's kind of how it is at the moment. Or imagine, you're one of the first people with a smartphone and nobody else uses any of the apps. You're like, okay, like hopefully someone else gets a smartphone so the two of us can use it. But really the key is, taking this really long-term approach and perspective that, at the end of this decade, this technology is going to change the world, and you want to be, there for the ride. And a lot of people think, about the monetary aspect, like how can I make money from this, or how can I profit from it? And really, when this is successful, this movement, money just won't matter as much. So it's kind of like with the internet, people used to not have the access to information that they do now. They need to go to a library, they need to talk to an expert. And someone could have said, I want to have a faster internet speed because then I can, watch videos faster or, download stuff faster. But now, the internet speed doesn't really matter. It's just so fast, everyone's access to it. If you told me, or you told someone here, you've got way faster internet than everyone else, everyone's like, okay, that's cool, but instead of your video loading in 0.5 seconds, it loads in 0.1. It doesn't matter. So what tokens will do is create a world where everyone's just got more than enough money and value and ownership that people won't make decisions based on finances. They'll do it because they love what they're doing, and because people are supporting them. So yeah, let's work hard on getting that movement forward. Like it all depends on each of us. Another one from Daniela: if we look to Russia and Ukraine, do you think the world is really ready for the token economy and the idea of equality? Yeah, most definitely. So, we live in a world where there's 190 countries, and, it's mostly imaginary lines. So if you look at the world map, you've got like this line that, is very clearly defined. But if you go to these lines, you'll be like, wow, okay, there's a forest or there's a mountain, and there's no, there's like a river, and you're like, okay, that is this country, that is this country. Like, who decided that? It's all of these imaginary constructs. And, if you take the idea that this whole earth is one government, you've got the earth government, and you go slightly to the other side, you've got continent governments. You've got like, the European Union, you've got China, you've got United States. These are like collections of countries effectively. Then you move to the other side, you've got countries, you've got things like Argentina, you've got things like maybe Egypt or Peru. These are countries. And you go to the other side, you've got cities, things like Singapore or Macau or Hong Kong or the Vatican City, where it's not quite a country, but it's a city. But let's say that's too big still. We want to go small into neighborhoods. So, from 190 countries, we're going to have, 190,000 countries or 190 million micro governments or countries. And we're going to look back at this time and go, wow, it's crazy. You get born and you got a book, and that book told you where you're from. We're going to go into museums in the next 50 years and go, wow, these are all the passports that people used to carry around. And when they go to another part of the earth, they'll be like, wow, that gave them their so-called identity. And it'd be like, wow, it's kind of nuts. This book basically had so much power over people, and it defined who you were and your identity. And tokens are going to help lead this shift, because if you look at conflict-ridden parts of the world, places like Pakistan and India, Israel and Palestine, you look at Ireland and the UK, places like this. It's kind of like a football team. People have this strong nationalistic identity, but it's going to change so much when, let's say you're from one part which doesn't like my part of the country, or like Northern Ireland and Republic of Ireland. If we become invested in one another, I want you to thrive and do better, because then I do better, and then eventually I don't care even about doing better because I have so much, and, the value just flows around much more freely. So, money stresses a lot of people out, even people with lots of money, they're worried about losing it, so they need to make more. People with no money, they were paying their rent, supporting their kids, putting food on the table. All of this, this decade will change. The same way when you used to make a phone call with someone across the world, like 10 years ago, not so long ago, it used to be $1 or €1 a minute. And now, you can talk to someone on one of the messaging apps for hours and it doesn't cost a cent. And it's really not that long ago, where, 40 euros for a $40 minute call, it's €1 a minute. And it's like, that's normal. You have a call with someone, who's like, let's not talk too long, it's expensive. And now it's, next to free. So this idea that, most people in the world are really, having to sell their precious time. You live for about 30,000 days, sell your precious time to, survive. It's really going to radically change this decade. So super excited for that. Enki has a question. Can we watch your whole presentation somewhere? It's been recorded. Yep. So we will have that. Anchor has kindly posted his Telegram link. So please feel free to message him and ask questions. Can you recommend certain resources when thinking about building a DAO? Most definitely. So we're launching this thing called Unit University, and it's basically like a resource. It's an encyclopedia on how to build DAOs or tokens, or Web3 projects. We're looking for help there. So if anyone is keen to join the Unit team, be a pioneer, support, please reach out to Anchor or myself. Our team has about 40 people at the moment. We want to grow to 200 people this year, and we're looking for help in lots of cities around the world. So if you're interested, we're super open. You don't need to have lots of experience in the crypto sphere. You just need to be, passionate and excited about what's to come. And one of the big tasks is educating and building up communities in different places. So really excited to have your support there. Anchor says wallets will be your passport of the future. Most definitely. And this idea of division, or teams, is going to be much more equitable, cooperative. Daniela here says, I like the idea, but I'm not sure if the countries will give up their power. So same with countries, rich people, powerful people, they might not want to give up their power, right? It might not seem that they want to give up their power. But this new system, what it does, it's going to be a win-win. So, someone like Jeff Bezos with 190 billion, they might look at tokens and go, oh my gosh, if Amazon was tokenized, does that mean, he's going to make less money? But, what actually happens, Amazon, instead of being worth 3 trillion, will be worth, 25 trillion. So he might not own, $190 billion, like 20% of Amazon. He would own maybe 10% of Amazon, but his smaller reduced stake will be worth more. So, if you start a company now, you might own 100% of it. If you did have a token, you might own 50% of it, but your 50% is worth more. So someone like Jeff Bezos, instead of having 190 trillion, he's going to have, 190 billion, he's going to have, 20 trillion. So he's going to make more money, but then, the 2 million Amazon employees would get a piece of the pie, basically. So that's why, the people who control the world, the rich, powerful people will benefit from this new system. So it's going to be a win-win. A question from Lubica. I'd love to know what are the challenges we need to think about to get to the token economy vision, and how can we resolve them in the long run? So one key challenge is education. So, a lot of people needed to learn how to use email. If you watch some videos of 1994 talking about email, people are like, why would I use this thing? so few people have a computer. If I send an email, they might not receive it. If I lose my password, I lose all my emails. So it sounds kind of silly to think about. Or if you watch an interview of Bill Gates on the David Letterman show, he talks about watching videos on the internet. It's like, haven't you heard of television? He said you can play it back any time. He said, haven't you heard of a tape recorder? So it's kind of abstract. You're like, why would I use this thing, right? But if you educate people, you get some good case studies. Like, really cool. I'm excited for the future where all of us here have personal tokens, and they've got tokens of things in our community, and we could listen to each of our different ideas and projects we're working on and go, okay, which challenges are you facing with your token? How can all of us support globally and buy into and support projects in different places and jurisdictions? Question here from Anke. So what do you think will happen to current governments and all the politicians? How do you see this transformation happening, thinking about China and Russia? So the way I like to think about it, it's going to be incremental, then it's going to be exponential. So it's kind of like not much is happening, it's kind of slow, and then all of a sudden it just hits lift off, and it's like, wow, that was quick. So it's similar to newspapers. 20 years ago, you used to have a newspaper delivery boy, throwing a newspaper to your front yard, and everyone would be sitting on their porch, enjoying the newspaper, and they'd be like, I hear about this internet thing, but I like to sit on my porch and read the papers, right? And now you think about, when was the last time you saw a newspaper in a store or held a physical newspaper? Paid $30 a month to get 30 newspapers. It's kind of a foreign concept. So same with governments. I think what's going to happen is we're going to have lots of successful tokens emerging in the token economy. And then over time, it's just going to move gradually to this new token-based government. You're going to have something like, Russia or China or the United States have, small micro governments or countries, digital internet nations within it. Or around it, and then over time these governments will become more like advisory bodies, kind of like the United Nations doesn't have a physical group of people it represents, but it represents the whole world. So people look at the idea of Russia, it'd be like kind of like the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire still exists in theory. It represents Turkey, it represents a bunch of regions around the Middle East. But if you try to speak to the Prime Minister of the Ottoman Empire, it doesn't exist. Or the Roman Empire, now that's where Italy is. It's just the evolution. And countries like China, modern day China is only like 60 years old, 70 years old, since the Cultural Revolution. The United States is only 300 years old. Russia, since USSR is like 30 years old. So it's not like these things have been around for ages. They're quite new projects. And it's quite hard to think that these extremely powerful groups and people will not be around forever, but we're gonna have people like us building super interesting things and experiments. Many of them will fail, but the idea and the features of things like the Treasury allows ways to look at different tokens and projects to go, okay, well, this one is more sustainable, this one has more people behind it, and the more that we experiment and create, then that's how we can learn from each other. So I'm really excited. If there's anyone I can help or support anyone here, please feel free to reach out. I'll put my Telegram here. And if anyone has any questions before we move to breakout room, then that'd be great. In the interim, before the world becomes borderless, are there any questions people need to ask or research about on local regulation in their country when they set up a personal token or onboard their business on the Unit platform? And is a token on Unit considered as a utility token or security token, or a bit of both? So this is a great question. So it's like, what are the legal risk requirements? And there's a lot of people say, I'm doing a security token, I'm doing a utility token. So the way we like to look at it is that a token is a token, whether you call it a utility token or a security token. When people buy into it, they buy into it because they want to use it, they buy into it because they want to make money from it. You need to think of it from not how you're creating it, but from how people perceive it. And the way we like to look at it at Unit is, as long as we make sure that people are protected, meaning that, if you look at ICOs or you look at coins from 2017, a lot of people bought into projects, they put their life savings, they trusted it, and then it dropped 98%. So if someone put in, let's say $100, or $100,000, like their life savings, it became worth $1,000 or $2,000, right? And it's really shocking. I got to meet, and I'm friends with people who ran projects which raised hundreds of millions of dollars and then just overnight became like worth 98% less. And the current sentiment, in the NFT space, in the crypto space, is that people think that it's okay. And personally, I think it's not okay. Projects shouldn't be run speculatively. They should be run, based on providing real value. So kind of like, imagine you had an idea of starting a restaurant, and you didn't focus on providing good food or drinks or service. You're like, hey, I'm just going to find new people to buy shares of my restaurant, and we won't actually sell food. We won't actually, provide a good experience. We'll just, sell parts of our restaurants to new people. And then eventually you can't find new people to sell parts of the restaurant to, then the whole thing, becomes worthless. And that just shows how young and early our industry is at the moment. We're going to have to, like this idea of a treasury where you create a token, your token is not worth anything until you build up this treasury. And over time, as the treasury grows, then the underlying value of the token grows. So in terms of answering the question, is a unit considered a utility or security token? Probably a combination of the thing, utility security. Our most important thing is that, people who use unit or buy unit, they don't get left holding the bag, meaning they hold something which is actually worth, value and becoming worth more over time. It's super controversial, the idea of a security token. The SEC has come after a bunch of projects which are securities, which promise investments or future returns, and they basically are regulated or protecting people. Question here from Nina: how would this support the use of resources that we are not overusing? What resource we have in the planet? So great question, Nina. How do we be more environmental, sustainable, ecological? So this is something I'm super passionate about. I think we live in a society which is very consumerist. So people are buying more, or they want to earn more to buy more and consume more. I think when we move to a society where everyone has a lot more economically taken care of, then they would focus less on getting more material stuff, and they'll work on themselves, personal development. They'll work on giving back or supporting other people. So I think there is more than enough resources in the world. Homes, more than enough food, more than enough, drinking, like water. It's just very badly distributed. So if tokens can help distribute value more equitably and fairly, then I think that's going to really allow people to thrive and reach their maximum potential. Daniela has a question: what inspires you to build this ecosystem? So my big motivator is creating a world where everyone reaches their peak, maximum potential. Like I think money is a huge constraint for a lot of people, or it provides a lot of stress for a lot of people. And I strongly believe that at the end of this decade, there's just going to be so much more value flowing around society. And someone who is in debt or living paycheck to paycheck is going to have a few $100,000 and not have to worry about surviving. They can really thrive. And if they have two jobs and one job was paying 10 times as much, they'll be like, why am I going to sacrifice my personal happiness to take the one which pays more when I have already so much? So it sounds kind of utopian or far away, but it's really not. If you think about how making a phone call now is free, and the phone companies, if you pitch them free phone calls 15 years ago, they wouldn't be very happy based on the amount of money they make from phone calls. So same with banks, same with governments. A lot of them, can't see this potential of lots of micro governments or lots of cooperatively owned projects. But I guess we're super excited and confident that this is going to be a reality, and excited for us to create this together with everyone here. And Chris mentioned we have open signups for Unit Masters Cohort 9 starting March 13. So if you feel like taking the course again, or have friends who you think would benefit from the program, please sign them up at www.unitmasters.org. So really need everyone's help here. We are trying to educate people and kickstart this movement. And it's not a single one of us or group of us that will make this a reality. It's really all of us together. So if there's any way that we can support everyone here, and love your support in spreading the word, would be really grateful and appreciative. Nina: wonderful, Michael. Happy to be part of this, and see you next time, Berlin. Yep, really looking forward. We've got a bunch of city groups, for places like big cities all over the world. If you want to help in building up a unit community in your region, would love your help there. Does anyone have a final question? And then set up a breakout room in a minute. Olivia, will the cohort 9 be the same content to cohort 8, I suppose? Yep. So we are constantly improving it and iterating on it. So it will change slightly, but it's based on this comprehensive overview on crypto and tokens. So we started with Cohort 1 maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, and it's really improved. So we would love your help and feedback on how to make it better. And if you would like to volunteer or be a part, would really appreciate your help there. So I'm just going to set up. The speakers will be different. Well said, Anchor.